Alright, what's going on, everybody? So, okay, I sort of do a lot of talking on this channel about, it looks crazy, about the things that I did to sort of make this whole comic making process easier and quicker. So, what I'm actually going to do is, break down some of the ways that I actually sort of saved some time and made working on this comic easier, specifically my environments. Because that was something that was really key for me. Because it saved me a ton of time. I had pre-use footage to sort of, or footage, it's not video, it's a comic. Pre-used images that I could use for my comic that I sort of did at the start before starting the comic itself that helped to make things easier for me. And because I was just poor at really putting in details in my environments, this sort of helped me to sort of get better at that and help along with my style, my creating of environments, and my comic all at the same time. So I'm going to be doing a lot of showing stuff off. This is going to be a much different video from my normal ones, but I just wanted to do this because I talk about this all the time and I've never really shown you any examples. I'm going to start off here just giving you a general idea of what my backgrounds used to look like. So I'm going to pick a scene in Shadow Assassins and I want you to see what my background environments look like. As you can see, and note this was like, I want to say I made these about 7 years ago. I'll be honest, I don't know if anybody else would be this harsh, but I will. This is bad. There's nothing going on in these environments. There's nothing there. There's a ground, so you know that they're actually walking on something. And there is, like, I don't know if they're in a void, if they're in a backdrop. Like, I can't tell what they're in. Now, I know because I made this comic where they're supposed to be right now. But you, the viewer, looking at this probably can't tell where they're at. And there's no reason of me even zooming in so you can see what's going on more. Like, you can't tell. Going to my later pages, even where I stopped at, there's slightly more detail in this now, but there's still not much. But this is what sort of gave me the idea to do what I started doing in Uppercut. Still got some anatomy issues there, but it's nowhere near as bad. So I did improve over time, guys. But this background, I don't know why this page is so freaking small, but there is stuff in the background. You can at least make out that they are somewhere. You can tell that they're outside. You can tell that there are buildings in the background. There are no real details in these buildings. There's just not much going on here, like talking about it. But the thing is, if I do a wide shot of the environment that they're in, this was just sort of thrown together, and this doesn't match with my other. So this is supposed to be taking place in the same spot. There are some tremendous sort of scale issues here. This not so much, but this environment here, all of this here is supposed to be the same location that this is in, but none of this stuff looks the same. So even as I started to somewhat improve with environments, there's still a lack of cohesiveness to the story in terms of how everything looks. So noticing my environmental problems with making the backgrounds to my comic and sort of world building, I started off when making Infinite Uppercut trying to figure out how I wanted everything to look, what style I wanted everything to look in, the sort of vibe, the just something tangible that was cohesive throughout the entire comic so that it has an identifiable look in and of itself. And I think I accomplished that. So I sort of, from the start, I have my go-tos that I always use when I build my story. And that is, I try to summarize what the story is supposed to be. I summarize what the story is supposed to be. I map out what its setting is, and then what the actual settings of the comic are. Just sort of getting a little more detail, a little more information about the world that it's in, and then I start breaking down each of the characters, giving a rough summary of all. But the environments here are, but I had the, what is that, the Royal Overwatch, the Neon Dragon, the Oven, the Space Grounds, the Winter Circle, the reservoir, which is the piss room that I'm currently working in the comic. If you've been watching my latest videos, you would know exactly what that means. I know that sounds crazy. The Winter's Throne, the tour bus, and the robot basement. I also had the Earth Plane Alley, a space temple, a laboratory, and then Genie Neezu's Paradise. So I had all of these sort of mapped out, and let me just pick a few here to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to select, see, the Neon Dragon, the Oven, the Space Grounds, and what's another good one? The Throne. Okay. I mapped out just coming up with ideas for where I wanted the story to take place and how I wanted it to look, which I knew from the start because it's what I really like doing in my environments to begin with. So before I show you the actual environments, let me just show you some stuff that I do in my own artwork in general. Looking at my actual artwork, there are a few things that's universal and a lot of the environments that I like to paint. Now, I've also painted quite a few video game environments. You could probably see a lot of those paintings if you dig through the archive of my channel far enough. There are tons of them. But that sort of painting stuff in video games is painting stuff that I didn't really create. I'm not doing anything from my own imagination. So these are my own original environments with the exception of this one, which is Ryu stage from Street Fighter. Completely negating what I just said. But in any event, I chose this simply because there's a common theme here. I love painting, for whatever reason, open environments like out in nature, or just outside in general. I love painting outside, specifically night skies a lot of the time. This could come from the fact that I'm inside working on stuff like this all of the time, so I have a knack for really doing outside environments. I love doing sort of background mountains, and I just love putting stars in the sky. Outside of that Ryu one from Street Fighter, it's a rainy sort of background, but there's still stars faintly in that outside portion. I don't know why I'm pointing, you can't see where I'm pointing at, but just this outside portion here, the mouse is even showing up. And this one, there's stars all over in the sky, and also neon lights. I don't know why, I don't know if it's even showing up very well, but even in my room, I have a whole bunch of different lights sort of going off. I just love lights. Like, it's the craziest thing for me. If I could, there would just be, well, sometimes I've done it, just have Christmas decorations all throughout my room year round. I'm a little off. But in any event, I like neon lights, I like stars, I like open spaces, so I knew these are the things that I really enjoy putting in my environments. So whatever my next comic is going to be a lot of that. Knowing the type of stuff that I like to work on in my environments and understanding what I sort of had a feel for what Infinite Uppercut was supposed to look like. After I had this and I sort of knew what the names of my environments were going to be, and I had an image in my head of kind of how I wanted stuff to look, and just having the idea for the story in my mind sort of spinning already, I started to make these environments. So, and if you noticed, if you've read my comic at all, some of these environments, I've either used parts of these images in the comic or I've used the entire image at different points for like establishing shots. So I've used this one. This was Genie Neezu's Paradise. As you can see, there's the common themes. There's neon and glowing lights for absolutely no reason, but it fits the aesthetic of my comic perfectly. There are stars all over this environment, and that little fire effect bites me in the ass every time I draw Genie Neezu, because I have it follow him wherever he goes, and sometimes that means that I sort of paint background detail for no reason, because I'm going to cover it up with that, and I'm talking about this right here. Here, I recently showed off, this is the Solar Temple or the Neon Dragon, whichever one I feel like calling it. But here, and before I continue, okay, I got so used to the lights just sort of changing and flickering in the background, forgot to cut the light back on. Anyways, so for here, I think we have all of what I like. So I still, even though this is an actual room and it's indoors, there's open space. This is no window. This is just completely open space through a wall. you can see, like I say, I have the background mountains in, got the stars in the background. Even through the wall itself, the stars can still be seen. There are neon lights all over the place, and I even have these sort of neon, I don't know if you want to call them statues. I do have neon statues. If that makes no sense, probably kind of doesn't, but I do that throughout my comic. Just because I think as a concept that would be ridiculous, and I think it would be over the top for somebody to have a statue of themselves but sort of made just out of like lights to just shine all over the place. I just think that would be a ridiculous and sort of narcissistic thing to do. So I make one of my characters do it. Then there's this one. This was one of the first environments that I did. I think when I used this in a comic, I toned down the stars on the actual planets in the background just because I felt like that was over the top. But there are stars in the background here, like I said, the neon lights and everything else. And then the characters are pretty much only going to be in the confines of this tiny area here, as well as this small area over here. So I later ended up redoing this environment to something closer that I would actually be able to use in the comic itself, and that's when I did this one. Just sort of cropped it out to here. So I sort of made this environment here. And then I also had the throne room. This is actually the environment that's I've gotten the most use out of in my comic, simply because as an establishing shot to Beaumont's throne, I just, being honest, I'll take this environment, sort of cut out maybe this portion of it and use it in a page, and I'll just only draw Beaumont in some weird ass position wearing some crazy hat and sitting in the chair. And I've pretty much done this like once per chapter in every chapter of the comic. It maybe even a couple times, but I've used this one environment quite a bit because it's pretty important to the story. So, and here, like I said, background mountains, the stars in the back, all the neon lights. Like, even if the actual quality, because some of these are just really sketched together, so I needed to redo some of them for use in the comic itself. But you can clearly see there is a vibe and a style to the look and feel of the comic. There's some type of thing or binding elements that keep them all connected and make it seem like this is all a similar world that's taking place here. And then I still had issues like I don't even know if I want to show this, but screw it. A character that I have that gets murdered on the toilet, because why not? This bathroom I didn't really have, so I just made sure to have stars and stuff like that in the environment itself, because I never took first thing you see in the comic, but I didn't think about including the bathroom in here, so I didn't have a definable look of that. But because you just really need to see somebody get their head blown off, that wasn't that important. I do have a few instances where I don't have a particular environment mapped out for the story. This would be another one where it's alleyway, and I sort of on the fly had to figure out how I wanted that to look. But it was in doing that on the fly, trying to make up an environment in the comic, that sort of created issues for me working on Brainbuster. Yeah, working on Brainbuster and Shadow Assassins. I didn't have that as much in Uppercut. So, like I said, Genie Nizu's Paradise that I showed you, I have in the background here. So this is all taking place in this space here, and you can see the elements of it in the backgrounds on this page. And then these are some early pages too. This is like early chapter 1 of Uppercut. But as you can see here is the actual image itself being used in the comic, and then the characters being shown off in the space itself. So I could use the environment itself as I do in this first panel, and still, when I actually have to draw and paint the background by hand, you can see that I have a basis to know what everything is supposed to look like from there. And it just makes, I don't know, it makes the guesswork of how things are supposed to look or holding to my imagination much simpler. And I can get away with, at times, using the actual image and just throwing it in the comic and adding the details that I need to an image that I've already made. This saves a lot of time from having to, from scratch, paint every single environment in the comic. That is so tedious. And my big philosophy is, especially like I don't have editors, I don't have another artist working with me, I don't have someone else writing the story. Like, I personally do everything in my comics on its own. I enjoy that, I like that, but it's also extremely time consuming and taxing on one individual person, especially when you're working jobs, is family stuff going on. There's so much time that's being taken up by doing so many things. Any way that I can be smarter about my comic making process and speed this up, I'll do it. So that's why I will take these pre-made environments that I had at the start to know what everything is going to look like, and I'll use these in the actual comic itself. If you watch the end of my 100 days of making comics challenge, you'll know that this environment, which is used here, even this, you can still get a feel for him being in that environment with me doing very little, having to do the backgrounds on these pages. Like, it's not much that I need to do to have you understand that he's still in this room. It makes things a lot simpler for me. And one final example before I finish this off would be like this page, where you can see this intricate sort of background that they're in here, and you get a feel for the world that they're in. By the way, that Genie Nizu example with the fire can be seen right here, because none of the background detail I did there shows up, because I had to paint over it. But here you go. That would be this environment. Bam, first image at the top already used, and when I need to paint the background for the rest of the panels, it's easy to pull off, and you can make out that they're still in this same sort of space. So yeah, it just, like I said, doing this has really helped me out a lot, and it saves a lot of time. Now, I also know this may not be a philosophy for everybody, I get that, but to anybody that really likes streamlining their work and getting things done in a sort of simple process, sort of taking little shortcuts that make life easier on themselves, or if you like being super organized, and just try this and see if it works for you. It definitely worked wonders for me. Just any little tip that I can give as to something that I did that may help somebody else, I just wanted to pass that along. So, and just for the sake of doing it, and I don't even know how well this will show up, these are the sketches of said environment. So this one right here ended up becoming this. Still was a lot of work that went into doing these environments, but to be able to have a basis of how everything looked, and to be able to take what I created here and use that going forward to sort of save some time and make everything simple, so I know what it's supposed to look like and not have to do any extra guesswork or use any extra brain power than I really need to. This has helped me out tremendously, and I don't think I would have been on the verge of finishing this comic out in like 2 or 3 years, which is still a long time, being honest, because a lot of people will like to get comics done in like 6 months time or less. But I mean, a lot of webcomic creators and people with comics online, it's taken like 10 years and they're still like nowhere close to being finished. I feel like doing stuff like this, especially if you're working by yourself, it can save you so much time. So that's why I shared this today. So, and like I said, for some people this could be excessive. I don't know. What methods do you sort of use in your backgrounds, or are you a person that really likes drawing all the details of every background of every panel of your comic? Just let me know in the comments below, like, what your thoughts are. How do you really handle environments in your own comics? Or if you plan on making one, what do you think would work best for you? So I'm gonna get out of here. I still have more work to do on Infinite Uppercut anyways, because I have to get a page done for the day and I haven't quite started working. I just have to scan in. So I need to get going on that. So in the meantime, like I said, like and subscribe to the video if you haven't already. Leave a comment to let me know what you think. And you all have a good one. And I'm out.